Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about one of LA's most creative and most popular band during the 80s. I am talking about Oingo Boingo, or Oingo Boingo, as one of my less literate coworkers used to call them. Oingo Boingo is now better known, obviously, for being the band that Danny Elfman fronted. And of course, Danny Elfman has gone on to be one of the most famous film composers of our generation. And all the accolades, he deserves them 100%. But let's talk about Oingo Boingo. I'm only going to focus on the Oingo Boingo years. But I always like to start these videos out by telling you how I got into them. And that was because IRS put out a 10-inch single called Oingo Boingo. Now, I didn't know the band's history at that time. They actually used to be known as the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo. And Danny Elfman's brother, Richard Elfman, was a director and put together this film called Forbidden Zone. And Danny Elfman and the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo did music and appeared in the film. But that was several years before, of course, they whittled down their name. When Oingo Boingo came out, I'll tell you, I took it home, and the first thing I heard was a huge XTC influence. I'm going, oh my God, these guys have listened to XTC. I cannot believe this. I didn't think they were copying XTC, but I heard that influence. And now when I go back and listen to Oingo Boingo, I can't hear that at all. But back then, back in 1980, when I was 16 years old, I was hearing XTC. And of course, I was loving it. But that 10-inch came out and had early versions of Only a Lad. One of my favorite Oingo Boingo songs is on that EP. It's called Ain't This the Life? And it's just really, really incredible band. It was unique. I remember my friend Chuck getting into it, and we were like way into this band, and KROQ started playing them, especially Ain't This the Life. But they really took off when they signed with A&M Records and they released the album Only a Lad. Huge album, came out in 1981. This and most everything I'm going to show you are the Rubellin remasters. This is a label called Rubellin and does an excellent job remastering. They all have bonus tracks. So if you have these on CD already and they don't have bonus tracks, you need to pass those off to your kid brother or sister or your best friend and get yourself the Rubellin ones. Look at the bonus tracks. This album features the Oingo Boingo EP that I just talked about and more. So really wonderful. Lots of great songs. There's a completely unique sound. You're talking quirky, jerky pop. Everything was melodic, weird and odd and wonderful, eccentric. There was horns, there was keyboards, guitars, and it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Only a Lad, that features songs like On the Outside, another favorite, a really strange version of You Really Got Me, which is, the Kink song. And then Only a Lad, of course, is great. Lots of Nasty Habits is great. Lots of great songs in that. Came out in 1981. This really laid the foundation for the career that was to come. Lots of great stuff, including the album Nothing to Fear, another great, quirky, odd album that came out in 1982. This is a Rebellin version, and it contains bonus material. Songs on this that you will probably know. Private Life, another favorite. Gray Matter, Wild Sex in the Working Class, Insects, and bonus tracks. Great sound, a very unique band. Danny Elfman firing on all cylinders. Steve Bartek right here used to be in the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and he's actually been kind of Danny Elfman's right-hand man up until today. But he was definitely the right-hand man in Oingo Boingo. Wonderfully unique, absolutely fantastic. 1983 gave us Good for Your Soul. Another wonderful, weird, and odd. And, the thing is that Oingo Boingo were huge in LA and in other cities. Of course, they were huge in LA because, that's where they were from. And they made this music that was so far left field, but it was still pop, it's still new wave, but it was avant-garde. It was so many different things. I can see why at this point they weren't hitting number one on the top 40 commercial charts, because they were doing something different, something unique. And usually those kinds of bands are the ones that are, the lower regions of the charts, unfortunately, should be turned around. And, the saccharine and the dull should be at the bottom, and the unique and talented bands like Oingo Boingo should be at the top. But I know for some of you, they are on the top of your 80s favorites list. But this is another fine album. This features songs like Who Do You Want to Be, Sweat, Wake Up, It's 1984, and since this is the Rubellin remaster, it has bonus tracks. Like I said, The Rebellin releases sound absolutely great, wonderful, and the bonus tracks just make it an added bonus. Rebellin also sells vinyl, colored vinyl of a lot of these things, but they usually end up selling out. So you might want to hit up Rebellin Remasters and order your Oingo Boingo straight from their website. Now, Good For Your Soul was the last album on A&M. Now, initially, Danny Elfman thought about dissolving Oingo Boingo and just going solo. So he signed a deal with MCA Records and released the album solo. This is his first solo album. This is a pop album. It's essentially an Oingo Boingo album. All the members, or most of the members of Oingo Boingo, play on this album. And it sounds like sort of a smoother, maybe slightly more commercial Oingo Boingo, less herky-jerky, less quirky, less odd and eccentric, but still wonderful. He's a great songwriter. That's the thing. He knows his way around a pop melody. Well, this album has Gratitude on it, which was a big hit, and lots of other great songs. Still staying with MCA, Danny Elfman reconvened Oingo Boingo, and they put out the album Dead Man's Party. This is probably the biggest Oingo Boingo album ever. Boy, was this a huge record. Songs played on the radio all the time. Of course, they had a big hit with Weird Science, the theme from the movie. And this 1985 release also has Just Another Day and Dead Man's Party and Stay. There's so many great songs. Again, it's sort of smoothing out the quirkiness, still being very unique, still sounding like Oingo Boingo, but being even more poppy, more immediate to some of the people out there who might have been put off by the quirky, jerky uniqueness of the stuff. Still very, very unique, but in a more commercial way. And that is right there. That's Dead Man's Party, 1985. 1987, probably their most commercial album yet, with Boingo, still completely unique and still completely awesome. My favorite Oingo Boingo song is We Close Our Eyes, and that is on this album. But there's a lot of great songs on here, including Home Again, Not My Slave, lots of great songs and bonus tracks, since it is a Rebellin remaster. Great album. Now, in 1988, they put out an album called Boingo Alive. I completely avoided it when it came out because I don't like live albums. Don't listen to live albums. I don't like the sound of the audience and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't until years later that I actually realized that it was, I believe, like live without an audience. So I'm going to have to track that down if Rebellin doesn't put that out at some point. But also, just after the release of those albums there, A&M put out a Skeletons in the Closet compilation, which, to capitalize on like the success of Weird Science and everything. So they were showcasing all the earlier stuff off the first 3 albums and the EP. And that's a nice collection. Definitely. Their next album was kind of a darker, not as exciting release, with Dead Man's Party and Boingo. They were, bursting at the seams and there was still brightness in it. I mean, the album title is Dark at the End of the Tunnel. And it's not dark or goth or whatever, but now when I listen to it many years later, when it first came out, I thought, okay. I didn't hate it, but I thought, the other albums were better. Now I think it sounds better. There are some songs that have like samey keyboards in it, but overall, Dark at the End of the Tunnel is a lot better than some of you Oingo Boingo fans remember it. If you don't look at it too fondly, go back and listen to it again, because let's do it with fresh ears and with bonus tracks, because it is a Rebellin. So definitely check that out. Dark at the End of the Tunnel is a really fine album. It's just not as bright and bouncy as the albums that came before it. Oingo Boingo left MCA, and then MCA put out an album called Best of Boingo, which was another compilation which covered their MCA years. Then they signed with Giant Records, which was part of Warner Brothers, and they changed their name to just Boingo. And then they put out the album Boingo in 1994. It's a very much more serious album, not really quirky. There's some amazing things on this album. Again, just like Dark at the End of the Tunnel, this just got better with time. And like the last song, Change, is like 12 or 15 minutes long or whatever, and it doesn't get old. It's really, really fantastic. You should definitely check that out. This is probably something that you're going to be able to find on CD. I don't know if it came out on vinyl. Boingo officially broke up after that. Danny Elfman pursued his solo career as a composer, film composer, Nightmare Before Christmas and a lot of the Tim Burton movies and so much more. He also put out an album in 2021 called Big Mess. I don't own it. I'm not covering that album. I'm only covering the Oingo Boingo years. But if you're a fan of Oingo Boingo and a fan of Danny Elfman, definitely check out Big Mess. The last thing I want to show you is this thing called Anthology. It's a 2 CD set, came out in 1999, and this covers the entirety of Oingo Boingo's career. Lots of great stuff on there. There's even a couple tracks on here that I don't think even made it to the other CDs, like Cinderella, Undercover, and Goodbye Goodbye. I think those are probably the Boingo Alive versions, without an audience, obviously. But if you find this and you don't have any of the other Oingo Boingo albums, I would say check this out. But you really need to buy the Rebellion remasters because they sound great, they look great, and Oingo Boingo is great. Anyway, that is it. Guess what? I've got a very short medley featuring little snippets of some of my favorite and your favorite Oingo Boingo songs, just to remind you what a great band they were. Listen to this, and I'll see you on the other side.
My stupid life just the way it is, and goodbye, 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 goodbye.
Anyway, that's it. I really appreciate you watching this video. I hope it inspires you to go check out some Oingo Boingo. Definitely go to the Rebellion Remasters website and order your CDs or vinyl, whatever you want. You can get these in stores, but usually the stores will sell out of the colored vinyl variants. So just remember, I appreciate you. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.